The testing chamber at Vorthak Galactic Military Academy was silent, except for the soft hum of energy shields. 23 cadets from different worlds sat at their stations, each one looking nervous. Their alien faces showed worry in different ways. Some had extra eyes that blinked fast. Others had tentacles that moved without control. A few had scales that changed color with stress. Instructor Velthera walked slowly between the rows of seats. His tall, thin body moved like a stick insect. His forearms carried data pads and testing equipment. 2 large black eyes looked at each cadet as he passed. He had given this same test for 300 years. He knew what would happen. "Today you take the cognitive aptitude assessment," Velthera said. His voice was dry like old paper. "This test has broken the minds of the galaxy's best thinkers. It will push your brain to its limits and beyond." The alien cadets shifted in their seats. A Zephyrian cadet's blue skin turned pale green. A Korthek student's breathing holes opened and closed quickly. They all knew the stories about this test. In the back row sat Daeho Kim. He was the only human in the room. His black hair was cut short and neat. His brown eyes looked calm as he watched the instructor. Unlike the other students, he did not look scared. He just waited quietly. "The test adapts to your mind," Velthera continued. "It starts simple and gets harder with each question. Most of you will stop at question 2 or 3. That is normal. That is expected." A Thraxian cadet raised one of his 6 arms. "Sir, what is the highest score ever recorded?" Velthera's mouth parts moved in what might have been a smile. Question 12. "Achieved by Zethquan the Brilliant, a Zentaurian mathematician. It took him 4 hours of intense mental effort. He had to stay in the medical bay for 2 days after that." The cadets looked impressed and worried. Question 12 sounded impossible to reach. "But remember," Velthera said, his voice getting serious, "no one gets past question 3 without great difficulty. Most beings simply cannot handle the mental pressure. Do not feel shame if you must stop early." Near the wall, 3 humans watched from an observation area. Woojin Park wore the blue uniform of Earth's Space Force. His job was to watch how the first human student did in galactic military training. Next to him stood Sora Lee, a diplomat from Earth's foreign ministry. She had worked hard to get humans accepted into the academy. The third human was Dr. Hyejin Choi. She studied how different alien minds worked. Her research helped humans understand their new galactic neighbors. All 3 humans looked curious about the test. "Begin when your screen activates," Velthera announced. He pressed a button on his control pad. The testing stations came to life. Each cadet's screen showed the first question. Around the room, alien students began working immediately. Their writing tools moved across holographic displays. Some used tentacles, others used clawed hands, and a few typed with their minds. Daeho looked at his screen. The first question was about basic math. It asked him to solve equations with 4 unknown numbers. He read it quickly and started writing the answer. To him, it looked like homework from middle school on Earth. The other students worked much slower. They read each part of the question several times. Some made notes and erased them. Others stared at their screens with confused expressions. After 10 minutes, the first cadet gave up. A mollusk student from Kepler 442b pressed the surrender button. His tentacles had been shaking as he tried to work. Green tears came from his eye stalks. "Question 1 has defeated me," the mollusk said quietly. "I cannot continue." More cadets stopped working. By 20 minutes, only 8 students were still trying to solve the first question. The Zephyrian cadet looked ready to cry. Her blue skin had turned almost white with stress. Daeho finished the first question and waited. His screen changed to show question 2. This one was about space navigation. It asked him to plan a route through an asteroid field while avoiding enemy ships. He read the question and began calculating the best path. "Interesting," Dr. Hyejin Choi whispered to her companions. "The human student seems calm." Woojin Park nodded. Daeho always was good at tests, but this is supposed to be the hardest exam in the galaxy. "Maybe it's just the first few questions," Sora Lee said. "Wait until it gets really difficult." Around the room, more cadets gave up. Question 2 was too much for most of them. A reptilian student from Vega Prime hissed in frustration and pressed his surrender button. His scales had turned dark red with stress. Only 4 cadets were still working when Daeho moved to question 3. This question was about military strategy. It described a battle with multiple enemy fleets attacking from different directions. The cadet had to decide how to deploy their forces to win the fight. Daeho read the scenario twice. It reminded him of a video game he used to play with his friends back on Earth. The strategy seemed obvious to him. He quickly typed his battle plan and submitted his answer. The other 3 remaining cadets were still struggling with question 2. One of them, a crystalline being from the Andromeda region, finally gave up. His crystal body had started to crack under the mental pressure. "I cannot think clearly anymore," the crystalline student said. "The questions are too hard for my mind." That left only 2 cadets besides Daeho. They both looked exhausted and confused. Their answers to question 2 were taking forever to complete. Instructor Velthara walked over to check on the remaining students. He saw that Daeho was already working on question 3. This surprised him. Most students needed at least an hour just to understand question 3, even if they managed to reach it. "Cadet Kim," Velthara said, stopping next to the human station. "Are you having trouble with the interface? Do you need help understanding the surrender procedure?" Daeho looked up from his screen. "No, sir, everything is working fine. I just finished question 3 and I'm starting question 4 now." Velthara's 4 eyes widened. In 3 centuries of giving this test, he had never seen anyone move so quickly through the early questions. Even the brilliant Centaurian had taken much longer. "Question 4 already?" Velthara asked. "Are you certain you read question 3 completely?" "It is quite complex, yes, sir," Daeho replied. "It was about fleet deployment during a multi-front assault. I chose a defensive formation with rotating attack squadrons. Should I have picked something different?" The instructor looked at Daeho's answer on his monitoring screen. The human had not only understood the question perfectly, but his strategy was better than most solutions Velthara had seen from experienced officers. By this time, the last 2 alien cadets had finally given up. A tentacled scholar from the Horsehead Nebula collapsed onto his desk. His brain tentacles had turned gray with exhaustion. "I feel like my mind is breaking," the scholar said. 2 questions have drained all my mental energy." The final cadet, a proud warrior caste from the Rigel system, held out longer. He spent 40 minutes on question 3 before admitting defeat. His warrior honor made it hard for him to quit, but his mind could not handle the pressure anymore. "This test has bested me," the warrior said with shame. "I am not worthy of the academy." Now Daeho was the only student still working. The testing chamber had become very quiet. Even the air recycling system seemed to whisper softly. All eyes were on the lone human as he continued to work through questions that had defeated every other cadet. Velthara stood behind Daeho's chair, watching in amazement. The human's vital signs showed no stress at all. His heart rate was normal. His brain activity was steady and strong. He worked with the same calm focus he had shown from the beginning. Question 5 appeared on Daeho's screen. It was about quantum physics and space-time manipulation. These concepts were so advanced that most galactic universities only taught them to graduate students. Yet the human began solving it immediately. In the observation area, the 3 human watchers exchanged glances. They were starting to realize that something very unusual was happening. Their quiet cadet was not just passing the galaxy's hardest test, he was making it look easy. Velthara checked his chronometer. Only 90 minutes had passed since the test began. In that time, Daeho had completed more questions than anyone in the Academy's history, and he showed no signs of slowing down. The instructor's hands started to shake slightly. His ancient confidence was beginning to crack. Everything he knew about intelligence and mental limits was being challenged by this single human student. As Daeho moved on to question 6, Velthara wondered what other surprises this species might have in store for the galaxy. 2 hours had passed since the test began. The testing chamber was now filled with Academy staff who had heard about the unusual human student. They stood quietly along the walls watching Daeho work through problems that should have been impossible for any cadet to solve. Instructor Velthara kept checking his monitoring equipment. He thought the machines might be broken. No student had ever reached question 15 before, but the human was already working on question 22. The display showed Daeho's answers and every single one was correct. "This cannot be real," whispered Professor Kethmar, the Academy's head of mathematics. His tentacles were twisted with confusion. "Those questions are taken from theoretical research papers. Some of the concepts haven't even been taught in our classrooms." Dr. Haijin Choi moved closer to the observation window. She watched her fellow human work with steady concentration. Daeho's pencil moved across the screen without pause. His breathing was calm and regular. He looked like a student taking a normal test back on Earth. "Wu Jin," she said quietly to the military attaché. "What do you know about this young man's education background?" Wu Jin Park pulled out his datapad and checked Daeho's file. He graduated from Seoul National University with good grades. Nothing exceptional by human standards. His test scores were above average but not remarkable. He played soccer and liked computer games. "Soccer and computer games," repeated Sora Lee, the diplomat. "That's supposed to prepare someone for the hardest test in the galaxy?" On his screen, Daeho was solving question 23. This question involved calculating the gravitational effects of 17 different star systems on a space fleet's movement. It required understanding advanced physics, mathematics, and stellar mechanics all at the same time. Daeho read through the problem once. He made some quick notes on a scratch pad. Then he began entering calculations into his computer. To him, it felt like working on a puzzle. He enjoyed puzzles. Behind him, more Academy officials entered the chamber. Admiral Kekstari, the Academy's commander, pushed through the crowd. His battle-scarred face showed disbelief as he saw the test scores. "How many questions has he completed?" the Admiral asked. 23, sir," Velthera replied, "and he has not missed a single answer. His solutions are not just correct, they are elegant and efficient." Admiral Kekstari had commanded fleets in 3 different wars. He had seen impossible victories and devastating defeats. But this quiet human student was challenging everything he understood about intelligence and capability. "What is question 24? the Admiral asked. Velthera checked his master list. His face turned pale. "Strategic resource management during a galactic war, sir. The question asks the student to coordinate supply lines for 40 different star systems while under constant enemy attack. Our best military strategists take weeks to solve similar problems." They watched as Daeho read question 24. He took a sip of water from his bottle and cracked his knuckles. Then he began working on the answer. His fingers moved quickly across the holographic keyboard. "He's treating it like homework," Dr. Hyojin Choi observed. "Look at his body language. He's not stressed or struggling. He's just working." In the hallway outside, word was spreading throughout the academy. Students and teachers were abandoning their classes to witness this historic event. The human was doing something that was supposed to be impossible. A group of Zentorian mathematics professors arrived. Their species was known for having the most advanced mathematical minds in the galaxy. They looked at Daeho's answers with growing amazement. "His approach to the quantum mechanics problem was brilliant," said Professor Zithara. "He found a solution method we have never seen before. It's simpler and more effective than our traditional techniques." "But how is this possible?" asked another Zentorian. "We have studied mathematics for thousands of years. How can one young being from a primitive world surpass our greatest minds?" Dr. Hyojin Choi overheard their conversation. She began to realize something important. These alien species were measuring human intelligence by their own standards. They assumed that all minds worked the same way, but humans had evolved under very different conditions. Meanwhile, Daeho finished question 24 and moved on to 25. This question was about predicting enemy behavior during complex military campaigns. It required understanding psychology, sociology, military history, and game theory. Daeho thought about his favorite strategy games. He remembered playing against his friends online, trying to predict their moves and counter their plans. This question felt similar, just with more variables to consider. He began mapping out different scenarios. Each enemy commander would have different motivations and weaknesses. By understanding their psychology, he could predict their likely actions. It was like playing chess, but with multiple opponents and changing rules. The alien observers watched in silence as Daeho worked through possibilities they had never considered. His analysis of enemy psychology showed insights that impressed even the Academy's behavioral specialists. His understanding of motivation and decision-making is remarkably sophisticated, commented Dr. Velthon, a Catherian expert in military psychology. He's considering factors that our standard doctrine ignores. Question 26 appeared on the screen. It dealt with advanced engineering problems in space construction. Students were asked to design a space station that could operate in the gravity well of 3 different stars simultaneously. Daeho looked at the technical specifications. He remembered building things with construction toys as a child. He thought about physics lessons from university. The problem seemed like a more complex version of challenges he had worked on in engineering classes. As he designed his space station, Deho considered structural integrity, power distribution, and life support systems. He thought about how the gravitational forces would affect different parts of the station. His design was both practical and innovative. The Academy's engineering faculty watched his solution take shape. Professor Nexithari, the head of space construction, studied every detail of Deho's design. "This is extraordinary," Professor Nexithari said. "His structural approach would actually work better than our current designs. The way he's distributed the gravity compensation systems is ingenious." By now, the testing chamber was packed with observers. Academy staff filled every available space. Some watched through windows. Others crowded around monitoring screens in adjacent rooms. The impossible was happening before their eyes. Deho completed question 26 and stretched his arms. He looked at the clock and realized he had been working for almost 3 hours. His back felt a little stiff from sitting so long. He wondered if there would be a break soon. Question 27 loaded on his screen. This one combined multiple disciplines into a single problem. Students had to coordinate a diplomatic mission while managing economic resources and planning military defenses. It was the kind of challenge that typically required a team of experts working together. Deho read through all parts of the question. He organized the information in his mind like he was planning a complex project. First, he would handle the diplomatic requirements, then the economic factors, finally the military considerations. Each part connected to the others. As he worked, Deho didn't realize that he was solving problems that had stumped galactic civilization's best minds. To him, these were just interesting challenges that required careful thinking and systematic approaches. The alien observers began to understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented. This human student wasn't just intelligent. He represented a completely different kind of intelligence. His mind worked in ways they had never encountered. "We need to contact the Galactic Education Council," Admiral Kextari said quietly. "They need to know what we're seeing here." "Sir," Velthera asked, "what should I do if he continues past question 30? The Admiral looked at the human student still working calmly at his desk. "Let him continue," he said. "Let's see just how far this human mind can go." Deho finished question 27 and moved on to 28. He took another sip of water and continued working. Around him, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations watched in wonder as their understanding of intelligence was fundamentally challenged. Question 28 dealt with theoretical physics concepts that most species couldn't even comprehend. But Deho approached it with the same calm focus he had shown from the beginning. He was enjoying the mental challenge, completely unaware that he was making galactic history. The Academy's main communication center was buzzing with activity. News of the human student had spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed transmissions. Representatives from major civilizations were requesting immediate updates. Some were sending their best scholars to witness the event in person. In the testing chamber, Deho had just completed question 40. He rolled his shoulders to relieve some tension and looked around the room for the first time in hours. He was surprised to see so many people watching him. The chamber was packed with aliens of every size and shape imaginable. "Am I doing something wrong?" he asked Instructor Velthara, who was standing nearby with a shocked expression. Velthara's voice shook slightly as he replied, "No, Cadet Kim, you are doing everything correctly. Please continue." Deho nodded and turned back to his screen. Question 41 was about multidimensional space navigation. The problem described a scenario where a ship had to travel through folded space-time, while avoiding areas where reality itself was unstable. To most galactic civilizations, this was purely theoretical. Only the most advanced species had even begun to understand the mathematics involved. But Deho read through the question and began working on the solution like it was a normal navigation problem. Admiral Kextari stood with a group of visiting officials from the Galactic Science Consortium. Dr. Thexulon, the consortium's director of cognitive research, kept checking his instruments to make sure they were working properly. "This is impossible," Dr. Thexulon said for the 10th time. "No single mind should be able to process this much complex information simultaneously. The neural pathways required simply don't exist in known biology. Apparently, they exist in human biology. Admiral Kextari replied grimly. The question is, what does this mean for the rest of us? Dr. Haijin Choi had been taking notes throughout the entire process. As a specialist in comparative cognition, she was beginning to understand what made her species different. But the full implications were staggering. Wu Jin, she said to her colleague, I need to contact Earth immediately. Our government needs to know what's happening here. What should I tell them? Wu Jin Park asked. Tell them that we may have underestimated ourselves, Dr. Choi replied, and that the galaxy has definitely underestimated us. On his screen, Daeho was working through question 42. This problem required him to design a new form of energy that could power interstellar travel while remaining stable across different dimensions. It was the kind of challenge that theoretical physicists spent their entire careers trying to solve. Daeho thought about energy conservation principles he had learned in university. He considered the properties of different physical forces. Then he began designing an energy system that combined multiple approaches in a way that no one had tried before. Professor Kylethon from the Rigel Institute of Technology watched Daeho's work with growing excitement. His energy design is revolutionary, she whispered to her colleagues. If this could be built, it would change everything we know about space travel. Can it be built? Asked Professor Nextari. I don't know, Professor Kylethon admitted. But his mathematics are sound. The theoretical framework is solid. It's just beyond anything we've conceived before. More observers were arriving every hour. Transport ships from dozens of worlds were bringing scientists, educators, and government officials to witness the unprecedented event. The Academy's guest quarters were completely full. Some visitors were camping in their ships just to stay close to the testing chamber. Daeho finished question 42 and moved on to 43. This question dealt with a completely theoretical scenario. Managing the resources of an entire galaxy during a war that spanned multiple realities. It required understanding economics, politics, physics, and military strategy, all at the same time. As Daeho read through the problem, he thought about strategy games he enjoyed playing. Some of his favorite games involved managing complex civilizations with multiple resource types and competing demands. This question felt like a more complicated version of those games. He began by identifying the key resource bottlenecks. Then he mapped out the political relationships between different star systems. Finally, he developed a military strategy that would protect the most important economic centers while maintaining political stability. The observers watched in amazement as Daeho's solution took shape. His approach was so logical and systematic that it seemed obvious once they saw it, but none of them had been able to think of it themselves. He's not just intelligent, observed Dr. Velthon, the behavioral specialist. He's thinking in ways that are fundamentally different from how we think. His cognitive patterns don't match any known species. Question 44 appeared on the screen. The testing system was now reaching into its deepest theoretical databases. This question asked students to solve a paradox in temporal mechanics that had puzzled the galaxy's best minds for centuries. Daeho looked at the temporal paradox with interest. It reminded him of philosophy puzzles he had discussed with friends in college. They used to spend hours debating questions about time travel and causality. This was like those conversations, but with mathematical formulas. He approached the paradox by questioning its basic assumptions. Instead of trying to resolve the contradiction within the existing framework, he proposed a new way of thinking about time itself. His solution was elegant and simple. Professor Zethquan the Brilliant, the Zentorian mathematician who had previously held the test record, had arrived to witness the event. He studied Daeho's solution to the temporal paradox with growing amazement. In 4 centuries of studying temporal mechanics, Professor Zethquan said quietly, I never considered approaching the problem from that direction. His insight is remarkable. The testing chamber had become a gathering place for some of the galaxy's greatest minds. They watched in silence as a young human student solved problems that had defined the limits of their civilization's knowledge. Question 45 dealt with consciousness and artificial intelligence. Students were asked to design a computer system that could think creatively while remaining completely logical. Most philosophers considered this an impossible combination. Daeho thought about computer programs he had written in college. He remembered discussions about artificial intelligence and machine learning. The question was asking how to create a computer that could be both creative and logical at the same time. He designed a system with multiple processing layers. One layer handled logical analysis. Another layer generated creative possibilities. A third layer evaluated those possibilities using logical criteria. By separating and then combining these functions, his computer could be both creative and logical. Dr. Artificial Intelligence Specialist from the Cyber Confederation studied Daiho's design carefully. "This architecture could actually work," she announced. "His approach to combining creativity and logic is theoretically sound." As Daiho worked on question 46, Instructor Velthara received an urgent message. The Galactic Education Council was requesting a complete halt to the test. They wanted time to study the implications of what was happening. Admiral Kextari read the message and shook his head. "Tell them the test continues," he ordered. "We need to see how far this goes." Question 46 required Daiho to solve a problem in quantum archaeology, reconstructing the history of the universe by analyzing quantum particle interactions across multiple dimensions. It was a field so advanced that only 3 species in the galaxy had even attempted to study it. Daiho looked at the quantum data and began looking for patterns. He thought about detective stories where investigators had to reconstruct events from small clues. This felt similar, just with subatomic particles instead of fingerprints. His solution traced the quantum interactions backward through time, creating a detailed history of cosmic events. The approach was so innovative that it opened up entirely new possibilities for understanding the universe's past. "He's just invented a new branch of science," whispered Dr. Quantum Specialist from the Vorthon Research Institute. "His methodology could revolutionize our understanding of cosmic history." Question 47 loaded on Daiho's screen. As he began reading it, Instructor Velthara was still explaining to a group of new arrivals why no one gets past question 3. The irony was not lost on the observers who had been watching this historic performance. The test had been running for 6 hours. Daiho had solved problems that challenged the fundamental limits of galactic knowledge, yet he continued working with the same calm focus he had shown from the beginning. Around him, representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy watched and waited. They were witnessing the emergence of a new kind of intelligence, one that could reshape their understanding of what was possible. Question 47 was about to test even Daiho's remarkable abilities, but based on his performance so far, many observers were beginning to believe that the human mind might have no limits at all. The emergency meeting was held in the Academy's largest conference room, but it still wasn't big enough. Representatives from 47 different galactic civilizations had gathered to discuss what they were witnessing. Some participated by hologram from their distant home worlds. Others had traveled here in person, abandoning important duties to witness this historic event. Admiral Kextari stood at the head of the table, looking tired and confused. "The human student has now completed 51 questions," he announced. "Our testing system is pulling problems from theoretical databases that were never meant to be used. We're in completely uncharted territory." Dr. Thexelon from the Galactic Science Consortium raised one of his tentacles. "Admiral, with respect, this is impossible. No biological mind can process information at this level. We need to consider that the human is using some kind of technological assistance." "We've scanned him multiple times," replied Professor Kethmar. "No technological implants, no hidden communication devices. He's solving these problems with his natural biological brain." "Then his biology must be fundamentally different from ours," said Dr. Velthon. "But that raises even more disturbing questions." In the testing chamber, Daiho was working on question 52. This problem asked him to design a new form of mathematics that could describe reality in universes with different physical laws. It was the kind of abstract theoretical work that most species couldn't even comprehend, let alone solve. Daiho thought about the mathematics he had learned in school. Numbers and equations were tools for describing how things worked. If the universe worked differently, then you would need different tools to describe it. He began creating new mathematical symbols and operations that could handle different kinds of reality. Dr. Haijin Choi watched her fellow human work and realized that she needed to speak up. She had been studying alien cognition for years, and she was beginning to understand what was really happening here. She stood up in the meeting room and cleared her throat. "Excuse me," she said. "I think I can explain what you're seeing." The room fell silent. Every eye, tentacle, and sensory organ focused on the human scientist. "You're all assuming that Daeho represents exceptional human intelligence," Dr. Choi said. "But that's not correct. By human standards, he's perfectly average." The statement hit the room like a bomb. Several alien representatives made sounds of disbelief. A crystalline delegate's body began to crack with stress. "That's impossible," Dr. Thexelon protested. "If this is average human performance, then your entire species should be running the galaxy by now." "We're a young species," Dr. Choi replied calmly. "We only discovered faster-than-light travel recently. We haven't had time to influence galactic affairs yet, but you're right that our cognitive abilities are significant." Sora Lee, the human diplomat, stood up next. "Perhaps we should bring in some additional human perspectives," she suggested. "I can contact Earth and arrange for more representatives to join us." Admiral Kexatari nodded grimly. "Do it. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Within hours, 3 more humans arrived at the Academy via emergency transport. Minho Jiang was an education official from Earth's Department of Learning. Hyunyoung Ko was a cognitive researcher who specialized in human brain development. Byung-Soo Lim was a recent graduate from Earth's Naval Academy. The expanded meeting convened as Daeho worked on Question 55. He was now solving problems that dealt with the fundamental nature of existence itself. The testing system had started generating entirely new fields of knowledge just to challenge him. "Please explain human educational systems," Admiral Kextari requested. Minho Jiang pulled out a holographic projector and displayed images from Earth schools. "Human children begin formal education at age 5 or 6, he explained. By age 12, they're routinely solving mathematical problems that require multiple analytical approaches simultaneously. The alien observers studied the images of human classrooms. Children sat at desks, working on problems that looked remarkably similar to the early questions on the Academy's test. "These are children?" asked Professor Zethquan. "They appear to be handling complexity levels that challenge our adult minds. Human development is different from most species," Hyunyoung Ko explained. "Our brains continue growing and forming new connections throughout childhood and into early adulthood. We evolved under competitive pressure that required rapid learning and adaptation. But surely this level of performance is exceptional even for humans." Dr. Thexelon insisted. Byung-Soo Lim shook his head. "I took similar tests in military academy," he said. "Daeho's performance looks normal to me. Maybe slightly above average, but not exceptional." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If this was normal human performance, then everything they understood about intelligence and capability needed to be reconsidered. "What about the emotional stress?" asked Dr. Velthon. "Surely the mental pressure should be affecting him by now." "Humans evolved as persistence hunters," Dr. Choi explained. "We're built to maintain focus and performance under pressure for extended periods. What you consider mental exhaustion, we consider normal, sustained effort." On the monitoring screens, they could see Daeho working steadily through Question 57. His vital signs were stable. His movements were calm and controlled. He showed no signs of fatigue or stress. "This changes everything," Admiral Kexatari said quietly. "If humans can routinely perform at this level, then our entire understanding of galactic civilization needs to be revised." "What exactly do human children learn in their schools?" Professor Cathmar asked nervously. Minho Jiang brought up more educational materials. "Mathematics, science, literature, history, arts, and physical training. But the key is that we teach them to think systematically about complex problems. We call it critical thinking." "You teach children to analyze complex systems?" asked a Zephyrian representative. "Of course," Minho replied. "How else would they understand the world around them?" The alien educators exchanged worried glances. Their own species typically specialized in 1 or 2 areas of knowledge. The idea of teaching children to analyze multiple complex systems simultaneously was terrifying to them. "And this is standard education for all human children?" Dr. Thexulon asked. "Basic education is mandatory for all humans," Hyunyoung Ko confirmed. "Advanced education is available to anyone who wants it." About 60% of humans pursue university-level training. The mathematics was staggering. If 60% of an entire species could perform at levels that challenged the galaxy's best minds, then humans represented a completely new category of intelligence. "We need to reconsider humanity's role in galactic civilization," Sora Lee said diplomatically. Perhaps there are ways we can contribute more significantly to galactic society. Contribute? Admiral Kextari laughed bitterly. At this point, we should be asking how you plan to manage the rest of us. In the testing chamber, Deho completed question 58 and stretched his arms. He was starting to feel hungry, but the questions were interesting enough to keep his attention. He wondered how many more there would be. The problems were definitely getting more complex, but they still felt manageable. Each question required him to think carefully and consider multiple approaches. It was like working on a challenging homework assignment that covered several subjects at once. As he read question 59, Deho had no idea that his casual performance was fundamentally altering how galactic civilization understood intelligence, capability, and the nature of consciousness itself. The alien observers continued their discussions, but their focus had shifted from amazement to concern. They were no longer just witnessing a remarkable test performance. They were seeing the emergence of a species that might redefine what it meant to be intelligent in the galaxy. And Deho was still just getting started. Deho looked at question 73 and felt his stomach growl. He had been working for almost 8 hours and he was getting hungry. The question was about creating a new type of reality where the laws of physics could be adjusted by conscious thought. It was interesting, but he was starting to think about lunch. He read through the problem one more time, then submitted his solution. Instead of moving to question 74, he raised his hand to get Instructor Velthera's attention. "Excuse me, sir," Deho said politely. "Is there going to be a lunch break soon? I'm getting pretty hungry." The testing chamber fell completely silent. Hundreds of the galaxy's most brilliant minds stared at the human student who had just casually paused the most challenging test in known existence because he wanted to eat. Instructor Velthera's mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak. You want to stop for lunch?" "Well, I can keep going if you want," Deho replied. "But I usually eat around this time of day. My grandmother always said that regular meals help you think clearly." Admiral Kexitari felt something inside his mind break. This human had just solved theoretical problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries, and he was worried about missing lunch because his grandmother had taught him good eating habits. "Yes," the Admiral said weakly. "Yes, let's have a lunch break." As Deho stood up and stretched, the observers began to understand the true scope of what they had witnessed. This wasn't a superhuman performance by an exceptional individual. This was a normal human being doing normal human things. The fact that normal human things happened to exceed the limits of galactic knowledge was just an unfortunate coincidence for everyone else. In the Academy cafeteria, Deho looked hopefully at the food options. Most of it was designed for alien digestive systems and didn't look appealing to human tastes. He spotted young Mi Kim, the human cook who had been hired to prepare meals for visiting humans. "Do you have anything that tastes like my grandmother's kimchi?" he asked hopefully. Young Mi smiled. "I have something close. How did your test go?" "Pretty good," Deho replied, accepting a plate of food. The questions were interesting. Some of them reminded me of games I used to play. Young Mi nodded as if this was perfectly normal conversation. She had no idea that her casual chat with Deho was being monitored by dozens of alien intelligence specialists who were frantically trying to understand human psychology. While Deho ate lunch, emergency meetings were being held throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Education Council had convened an emergency session. The military command structure was reassessing all their strategic assumptions. The Economic Planning Commission was trying to figure out what it meant to have a species that could solve problems they didn't even know existed. Dr. Hyojin Choi found herself at the center of a storm of questions from alien researchers. They wanted to understand everything about human cognition, education, psychology, and social development. "How do you prevent your children from becoming overwhelmed by such complex education?" asked Dr. Velthon. "We don't really think of it as complex," Dr. Choi replied. "We just encourage them to ask questions and think about things systematically. Children are naturally curious. But the mental pressure of processing so much information simultaneously," Dr. Thexulon protested. "Humans actually enjoy mental challenges," Yun Young Ko explained. We find problem-solving rewarding. It releases chemicals in our brains that make us feel good. The alien scientists struggled to process this information. To them, complex thinking was stressful and exhausting. The idea that a species might actually enjoy difficult mental work was almost incomprehensible. Meanwhile, representatives from major galactic civilizations were having urgent discussions about the implications of human intelligence. If humans could routinely solve problems that exceeded their best capabilities, what did that mean for interstellar relations? We need to establish formal partnerships with Earth immediately, said Ambassador Klexithari from the Rigel Confederation. If we don't, other civilizations will gain access to human problem-solving abilities first. But what can we offer them in return? Asked Senator Velthox from the Centauri Republic. If their average citizens can outthink our best minds, what do they need from us? Perhaps we should focus on what we can learn from them, suggested Dr. Kyle Thon from the Rigel Institute. If we can understand human educational methods, maybe we can improve our own cognitive abilities. The lunch break ended, and Dae-ho returned to his testing station. He felt better after eating and was ready to continue working. Question 74 appeared on his screen, dealing with the mathematical principles of creating alternate dimensions. As he began solving the problem, Sung-Woo Han and Ji-won Seo arrived at the academy. They were human educators who had been hastily sent from Earth to help explain human learning methods to the galactic community. We understand you want to learn about our educational approaches, Sung-Woo said to the assembled alien representatives. We're happy to share our methods. Can you really teach any species to think like humans? Admiral Kextari asked hopefully. We can teach the methods we use, Ji-won replied diplomatically. Whether other species can achieve similar results depends on their biological and cultural capabilities. But everyone can improve their problem-solving skills with the right training. This offer sparked immediate interest from dozens of civilizations. They began requesting educational exchange programs, training seminars, and joint research projects. The idea of improving their cognitive abilities was irresistible. Dae-ho finished question 74 and moved on to 75. He was starting to wonder how many questions the test actually had. Some of the later problems were quite creative, involving concepts he had never encountered before. But the basic problem-solving approaches remained the same. Read carefully. Identify the key issues, consider different solutions, and pick the best one. As he worked, the galactic community was rapidly reorganizing itself around the new reality of human intelligence. Trade agreements were being renegotiated. Military alliances were being reconsidered. Educational policies were being completely rewritten. The Galactic Science Consortium announced the creation of new research positions specifically for human scientists. The military academy began developing exchange programs with Earth's military schools. The Economic Council started planning integration programs to take advantage of human analytical capabilities. By evening, Dae-ho had completed 83 questions. The testing system had run out of theoretical problems and was now generating entirely new fields of study just to challenge him. But he was getting tired, and the questions were starting to repeat similar themes. Sir, he said to Instructor Velthera, I think I've seen enough similar problems to understand the patterns. Would it be okay if I stopped here for today? I have other studying to do tonight. Velthera looked at his monitoring equipment. The human had achieved a test score that was literally impossible to measure using their existing scales. He had solved problems that would have required teams of specialists working for months. And now he wanted to stop so he could do other homework. Yes, Velthara said quietly. I think that's enough testing for today. As Dae-ho packed up his materials and left the testing chamber, Admiral Kextari approached Woojin Park. The alien commander's expression mixed respect, fear, and desperate hope. We may need to reconsider our definition of impossible, the Admiral said. I think that would be wise, Woojin replied diplomatically. Over the following weeks, the galactic community began adapting to the new reality. Human advisors were requested for everything from infrastructure planning to theoretical research. Earth's universities received thousands of applications from alien students wanting to learn human thinking methods. The test that had once defined the limits of galactic intelligence became a historical curiosity. It was renamed the Pre-Contact Cognitive Assessment and filed away as an example of how much they had underestimated the possibilities of conscious thought. Deho continued his studies at the Academy, unaware that his casual performance had fundamentally altered galactic civilization. To him, it had just been an interesting test that covered a lot of different subjects. He was more excited about trying the new human-alien fusion cuisine that young Mi Kim was developing in the cafeteria. The galaxy had discovered that the impossible was simply another word for not yet understood, and with human minds helping to expand that understanding, the word impossible was quickly becoming obsolete. In classrooms throughout the galaxy, alien children began learning new ways to think about problems. Their teachers, trained by human educators, encouraged them to ask more questions and consider multiple approaches. Progress was slow, but every small improvement brought them closer to understanding the remarkable species that had quietly revolutionized their understanding of intelligence itself. The test scores were eventually published in the Galactic Academic Journal, along with a footnote that became famous throughout known space. The human subject stopped at question 83 not due to cognitive limitations, but because he had other homework to complete. It was perhaps the most human ending to the most extraordinary test in galactic history.